also want to thank Mrs. Tiffany Herring and Sharice Boyd Jackson for coordinating this. Definitely once again an honor to be before you guys. I want to thank y'all too. I definitely, from personal experiences, know that your job is not easy. So I don't envy you, but I definitely commend you for going out into the environment that you guys go in and try to keep the inmates in the prison facility safe. A little bit about me. My name is Richard A. Taylor. Currently, I am the founder of Taylor House Publishing. I've published and written 4 books of my own, published about 8 books for other people. So that's what I do currently. I also teach a substance abuse class out in Goldsboro, North Carolina, where I'm from 10 to 12 every day, trying to help people overcome the battles and strongholds of addiction, which I've suffered from in my years. So that's what I am currently doing. A little bit about my books, Brushes with Death, details my life in the streets and all the dangerous situations I faced. Second book, Wrongfully Accused, true story about me being falsely accused for something I didn't do, having to go to jail, wait to be exonerated at a trial. Son of a Preacher Man is about my father who didn't have a father, grew up, became a pastor, and gave me the father he never had. So it focuses on the overall importance of fatherhood. And the latest book, Blue Lights in My Rearview, details the history of the police brutality that we see today. It includes my own personal experiences with police, law enforcement, the justice system, and what we can all do to solve the problem for those type of situations and protect each other. So, but I'm also, regardless of those things, I'm also a 4-time felon. I've been arrested for everything from robbery to kidnapping, abduction, several charges, about 50 charges in my lifetime. A little bit about my background. Once again, I was born the son of a preacher man. My mother and father were in my life, still married today, so I was the product of a prototypical family structure. Very astute in my academics, very good in athletics, but as many of my peers and many probably of some of your peers, as time went on, about 12, 13, 14, I began to be influenced by certain things, whether it was music, media, movies, older peers, and I gravitated to the criminal lifestyle, smoking weed, drinking alcohol. About 14, 15, I began to buy little amounts of marijuana. And in the 90s, I don't know how old some of you guys are, but in the 90s, the big thing was crack cocaine itself. So I started buying that, and by the time I was 18, I was fully engulfed, excuse me, in that type of lifestyle. But as a rule in my house, my father, very stern disciplinarian, I had to go to college. So I chose North Carolina Central University. However, because I was already in that criminal mind state, instead of going to college with a suitcase full of school supplies, I went with a suitcase full of marijuana and ended up becoming, the weed man on campus. And that lasted for a semester until I was shot, robbed and shot. And that, once again, kind of stirred me further into the dark side, because now I felt like, I was validated. I was a validated thug. And so I stopped going to classes. At the end of that year, I went back home for the summer. My grades came. My parents saw that I had all incompletes for the second semester. You're not going back to Central. So then I was relegated back to the small town of Goldsboro, North Carolina, which is only 2 counties away. Pretty sure you guys are familiar with the town. Stayed around there. Once again, started hanging around with the wrong crowd. I was arrested between 18 and 21 for various charges. 2 of the most serious charges were armed robbery. Those charges were eventually dropped, thank God. But everything from hit and runs, possession of stolen firearms, marijuana, DWIs. I had 3 by the time I was 21. The assault on government official, all of those things. And by the time I was 21, I was sentenced for that 3rd DWI for a year in prison. My only time ever going to prison, but that was the year I was 21 years old. They sent me to Noose Correctional Facility. Alright, Noose Correctional in the house. Right. So so I went to Noose Correctional. The only thing about Noose Correctional was it was in my hometown, and also it was a misdemeanor camp. So my stay there, I have to admit, was somewhat lax. And the reason being because a lot of the correctional officers there knew me. They knew my father, they knew my family, they knew what type of upbringing I had, so they had a personal relationship almost with me, as well as a lot of the other guys. So it wasn't harsh as the other prison that I would soon get to, and that prison was Oak Youth Center, because during the middle of that time at Noose, I was convicted of that felony hit and run, which is a felony charge. Noose is a misdemeanor camp, so I had to go to Sandy Ridge, I transferred to Polk, and it was totally different. And what I mean by that, the conditions were much harsher, the environment was much more structured, and the correctional officers were a little more overbearing and less sensitive, because a lot of those young men at the time, once again, I only had a 5-month sentence, so I was quote unquote short time. So, but a lot of those guys I was in there with at 21 had 45 years, 62 years, 25 to life. And you know, they had already become hardened to the prison conditions at that age. So once again, it was almost a mirror effect, because a lot of the correctional officers were hardened to them. And just a couple of instances that happened there. Once again, I had short time, so I didn't want no trouble. However, I did get in a fight with a guy. He started it, so people witnessed it. So instead of both of us going to segregation, he only went to segregation. So, however, two of his friends who were in the same dorm as me, they saw the fight, they vowed to get me. And so, you know, I was moved from that dorm, but we still had the same yard. So long story short, they kept sending word, okay, when you come out on the yard tomorrow, it's going down. So I told the correctional officers, I said, look, man, I already know that's gonna be a problem. So if it's possible, let me not go to the yard or move me to, you know, another pod, as they call it. He was like, nah, man, you gotta go out there. You gotta go out there. I mean, it's nothing I can do. So I went out there, and you know, as soon as I stepped out the door, I went and fought with the two guys. And I handled myself pretty good, I think, you know, because, you know, I felt good about it, but nobody else would bother me again. But that was just an example of how, you know, it was a little bit more insensitive. They was almost like, you, okay, well, I want to see what you got, you know. So that instance there, you know, and a few more instances, I once again brushed up against the guard by mistake, and it was immediately sent to the hole. And there was a lot of stuff that, you know, once again, because of the character of those inmates in there, a lot of those inmates, they received harsher treatment. And the other thing about that state was when I left, my last day there, it was a sergeant, captain. I'm actually processing out, getting all of my things, waiting on the wall. And he said, okay, move over or something. He said it in a harsh manner. I was like, look, man, I'm about to go home. Oh, you'll be back. You'll be back. I look at you as job security. And once again, I went back to him. I was like, well, you've been here for much longer than I have. You know, you're going to be locked up way longer than I would be. And so once again, he took offense to that. Said, oh yeah, okay, keep talking then. I'm going to jump on you right now, and ain't nobody going to be able to pull me off of you. And then you ain't going nowhere. And so with that, of course, I knew we had the ability to do it. And so I shut my mouth, walked out of those gates. And I never forgot that though in life. And since then, I've never been back to prison. Now, not to say I haven't been in trouble, because after, you know, you get stamped with that felony, you go out, you get turned around a little bit. I started once again getting in trouble. I moved to Virginia Beach in 2003, trying to get away from the small town of Goldsboro. Moved to Virginia Beach in 2003, did well for a while. But once again, it was my mindset that, you know, caused me to look for things in Virginia that I left behind in Goldsboro. So before I knew it, I was looking for weed at the corner store. Next thing you know, I was looking for cocaine. I started using cocaine sparingly, but when I got to Virginia, I met a cocaine dealer, and it caused me to be really connected with almost an endless supply of it. So I began to selling it, using it very, very much because, I would have parties, a lot of people come over, use, and they say, almost 6 days, 7 days straight. That all ended in 2008 when I was shot 3 times holding my 3-month-old daughter, close range. And, that brought me to the brink of death. That was the catalyst for my first book, Rushing to a Death, with details, a lot of other instances. But that caused me to move back to North Carolina, get back involved in the church, start writing the book, the first book, but I got halfway finished in about 3 months. Got turned down by the North Carolina Board of Real Estate because I was also selling real estate in Virginia. I had 1 foot out and 1 foot in, trying to be legit halfway. So they denied me, in which once again, sent me back into a downward spiral. Started drinking, smoking, using cocaine, powder cocaine, in Goldsboro for a period of about 2 years. 2011, I got tired of it. I moved back to Virginia. Mind you, when I was shot holding my daughter, I had cocaine at the scene, so I also received a probationary sentence. But nevertheless, I actually got violated for that probation as soon as I went back to Virginia for leaving the state, coming to North Carolina. So I had to do about 5 months in jail. Once again, that was jail. So it's not as harsh as the prison circumstances were. Nevertheless, 2012, I finished that book. I wrote in college, and I did a book signing. At that book signing, I met a female acquaintance who I knew from before. That relationship spiraled into an up and down relationship. And to sum it up, June 1st, 2013, she accused me of rape, kidnapping, abduction with the intent to defile, and assault, and contributing to the delinquency of a minor because a child was in the area. So that sent me straight to jail. In Norfolk, that happened in Norfolk, Virginia. And in Norfolk, Virginia, when you are held on that kind of case, they send you to the 7th floor. And that's the roughest, toughest place in Norfolk jails. So while I was there doing my stay, I waited for 6 months. I subsequently, I went to trial, and they found out she was lying. But that 6-month stay was the most probably harrowing time in my life because, like I said, I've been to jail for something I've done, so it's okay. But when you're in jail for something that you haven't done, you notice everything. Everything is a little more harder. Every prick, every word is a little more harsh or hurtful. And so the instances in there, because I know sometimes correctional officers have access to your file and your jacket. And so I could see and hear, them treating me in their mind a certain way, almost convicted me already. Once again, on that floor, people had already gotten their time. Guys have been sentenced for double life sentences, 42, 52 years, 25 years, 37 years. They were already sentenced, awaiting transport to jail, but there are also people like me still waiting for their day in court. So that is a very tense situation when you don't know if you're going to spend the rest of your life in prison. And they had these things called shakedowns. Shakedowns where they send in the goon squad and they come rouse you up at 3 in the morning. And one particular time, my first experience with it, I see the guys coming in with the shields and the battering, the battering shields. And so they came in, roused me up. You had to get on the gates, and they started to pat you down. And the officer said, "Spread your legs." So I spread my legs groggily. He was like, "Spread your legs." I said, "I did, but you can't look at them." So he took my neck and put it forward, and then kicked my leg out wide. And so I'm just like, I looked at him again, but once again, so I had no reason.